Haven't seen in a long time. I worked at Brooks, it's gonna be 70.
They got some dashikis in.
Yeah, I'm not going there. I'm gonna wish you more.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to first welcome you all to ICF for this important workshop. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, salatu wassalamu ala rasulihil kareem. We all know that how important topic this is, and I want to thank Brother Shamsiddeen for picking up this topic, and he has been doing this for a while in Fayetteville. Jazakallah khairan for his efforts. We all know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that every soul will have taste of death. Kullun nafsin dha'iqatul maut. Whether you like it or not, this eventuality will happen to every human being. And Brother Shamsiddeen will shed some light on this and do his workshop on the next step after we have the taste of death. Again, I would like to thank every one of you to be here and encourage our brother Shamsiddeen to do workshops like this in the future, inshallah. Without further ado, I would hand over. I'd also
the sisters to come over.
I would also like to invite the sisters. We have sitting arrangement in the front, and sisters can come over so that they can see the demonstrations, which is very important. Without the demonstration, it's very difficult to follow the topic. We'll start the program in 1 minute. So if sisters wants to come in front, we have chairs on the male side also for the sisters. Jazakallah khairan. Over to Brother Shamsiddeen.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله.
Hold it up right to your mouth, brother.
Oh, okay, hold it up. Okay. Yeah.
I can put this one back.
As the brother says, you know, Allah says in the Quran in 3:185 that every soul, everybody is going to have a taste of death. You know, I don't know, maybe you do. You know anybody that lived 1,000 years ago that's alive today? Do you know anybody that lived and is alive today, still alive? Or has everyone died? I only know one individual that didn't die, that lived over 1,000 years ago. And you know him too, Isa ibn Maryam. Allah said that he wasn't killed, he wasn't crucified. Allah said that he rose him up, he raised him up, and he's going to return. And this is one of the beliefs that the Muslim must have. If you don't have the belief that Isa ibn Maryam is going to return, there's something wrong with your Aqidah. There's something wrong with your beliefs. And I know there have been individuals that say, oh, I'm the Christ, talking about themselves. No, they're mistaken. And if they're not mistaken, they're lying, outright lying. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already told us through his Rasul Islam what Isa ibn Maryam is going to do when he returns. One of the things he's going to do, he's going to break the cross. He's going to end the jizya. And what else is he going to do? He's going to kill the swine. You look around today, man, people eat more swine than they ever ate in their life. You know, and in terms of the cross being broken, people are still following that doctrine of the cross. They're still holding on to that. In fact, as Muslims, we need to be careful, especially those of us who were raised here, born here in this country. You know, because before we came to Islam, before we came back to Islam, we were Christians, many of us, and our families are still Muslims. And when you die, you better have a will. You better have left something behind to tell people, if you find me and I'm dead, here's what has to happen with my body. We got cards here. You should keep one in your pocket. So if somebody finds you dead in the street, like there was a brother, he came from Nigeria, and he was jogging in the street in the early morning. He was just a visitor, and he dropped dead. And what did they have to do? They had to do an autopsy on him to find out why he died and how he died. You know, and an autopsy is something that we don't want to have as Muslims. We don't want to have autopsies. So keep a card in your pocket, let people know, if you find my body, I'm a Muslim, and no, I don't want any autopsies. In fact, get in contact with this brother, or this sister, and this sister. You know, keep that card. You should pass them around. Brother Shakir, maybe you see that people get something else. So, have a will. Have a will. And don't put in your will anything that shouldn't be in it. Allah has already told you what the inheritance is. All you got to do is study the Sunnah of Rasulullah, and you know what the inheritance should be. You know what your mother's supposed to get. You know what your father's supposed to get. You know what your brothers, your sisters, you know what your children's supposed to get. You know what your wives are supposed to get. Everything is already laid out for you. And you shouldn't try to rewrite it and make it any different. No. And when you die, don't put in your will, oh, I'm from Afghanistan, and when I die in America, I want to be brought back to Afghanistan. Because if you're the brother that's in charge of that will, if you're the executive that's responsible for that will, when you come across that, I want to be taken back to Afghanistan, this is something that you have to disobey. Why? Because it's not in accord with what Allah has revealed or the Rasulullah has revealed. It's not in accord with that. Rasulullah said that we should be buried wherever it is that we die. That's what should happen. And for the Muslim, he understands that. He understands that. Because this religion is what Allah said and what the Rasulullah said. Nothing else. Not what the Sheikh said. Not what my Imam said. Not what that Imam said. No. It's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said and what his Rasulullah said. That's what the religion is. So that's what we have to follow. Don't wait. You want to make sure that your people know. Don't wait 3 days. Who thinks you got 3 days to wait to bury somebody? If a Muslim dies in the morning, he should be buried before nightfall. Buried before the sun goes down. You know, this is our religion. This is our religion. And these are the last rites. Don't mess up the last rites. Look at all the in-between that we already messed up. But don't mess up the last rites. Man. So we don't have 3 days. There's no proof for that. You ask people for proof, ask them for evidence, ask them for dalil, and they won't have any. No, not anything authentic. No. Remember not too long ago, I think it was one of the people in Saudi Arabia, he was the ruler of Saudi Arabia. He had died, and before that day was over, he was buried. He was in the ground. He was in the ground. That's our religion. I'm not saying that what happens in Saudi Arabia is absolutely our religion and we should follow everything. No, I'm not saying that because they off the hook. They're killing Muslims left and right in Yemen. I don't like that. You shouldn't like it either. You know, forgive me if I get a little nervous. No matter what happens, I sweat a lot. When you get older, you start sweating. But sometimes when I go on the minbar, I sweat even more because I'm afraid that I'm going to say something that I shouldn't say. May Allah help me, guide me, and protect me from that. One of the things that we're concerned about is that this message needs to get out to more of our sisters. I've been going around the state and even outside the state doing these workshops, and I'm finding that a lot of times we don't have the sisters. And the reason we don't have the sisters at the workshop is because the Muslim brothers are not allowing them to come to the workshops. They're discouraging them. Not just to the workshop, they discourage them from coming to the masjid. They said, well, brother, you know, Friday she's home cooking, take care of the children. We make big meals and this, that, and the other. All kind of excuses. I said, yeah, but when you die, brother, you got to be buried. Does your wife know how to do that? Does she even know that she can do it? You know, when your wife dies, you, brother, should know how to bury your wife. You should know how to wash her and shroud her and put her in the ground. How she should be received in the grave. From the foot side of the grave, head first into the grave, according to the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah. You should know, and she should know how to do that. Now, the burying of the Muslim, whether it be male or female, is the job of the man, the Muslim man. He must know that. But you don't stop the woman from coming and learning and seeing how it's done, because if something happens and there's no men around, there's only women, but we have a Muslim man that died, who you think is going to wash that body, shroud that body, bury that body? Come on. During the time of the Rasulullah, there were situations where there were men around, but these men were cowardly. And they had the Jews coming at them and was attacking them and doing harm to them, and would have killed a whole bunch of them if it wasn't for the women. And this is one time when the women put on a garment looking like a man. And she went out and she slayed that stinking Jew that was looking to kill them. I'm not saying that all Jews are bad. I'm saying she was going to kill that Jew that was coming to kill all of them. Because the man was cowardly and he didn't do it. So the women had to step up to the plate. You have people that tell women that they can't come to the cemetery. When Rasulullah and some of the Sahabas, they were visiting the cemetery, they were visiting the graveyard, and there was a woman sitting by the grave and she was wailing, you know, doing all that stuff that we shouldn't be doing at the time of death. And Rasulullah and some of the Sahabas approached the woman and said to her, you know, be patient, be patient. She said, get away from me. You don't know what I'm going through. You ain't never been through this. Messenger of Allah backed up and he went away. Because this wasn't the time now to start a big debate, get into a big argument, get into a big confrontation at the graveyard. Not the time for that. So he went away. But one of the Sahabas went to the woman and told her, hey, you know that was the messenger of Allah that you just told? She gathered her senses now, and she wanted to run and catch up with him. And some of the muhaddithin said that she caught up with him, and in other places it said that she went to his house, knocked on his door. The point was that she finally went up to him. But he told her when she came that you have to be careful at the time of death, because whatever you say, the angels say, I mean, to whatever it is that you say. So you don't want to say anything except that which is good. And he also told her that the way that she was grieving was inappropriate. He made it clear so she could understand. But he didn't tell her, you shouldn't have been in the cemetery. What was you doing in the cemetery? Women are not allowed in the cemetery. He didn't tell her none of that. Why? Because that wasn't his sunnah. So why do we tell the women now that they can't come to the cemetery? That's not the sunnah of the Rasulullah Islam. It's not. And we have to face up to it. We have to, meet it head on and deal with it. I went to a place, I'm not going to tell you where, but I just tell you it was amongst our Yemeni brothers. And I love the Yemeni brothers. I really do. I love the people of Yemen. When my son was young, 12 years old, my youngest son, he needed to get to Yemen because one of my older sons was in Yemen studying with Sheikh Mukbil. So we wanted the younger one, he was about 12 years old at the time, to get there. And I was wondering, how am I going to do it? So I got one of the brothers from here, from Fayetteville. As a matter of fact, it was brother Yahya Asadi, who took my son to Yemen to drop him off so he can be with his brother and he can stay there and study with Sheikh Mukbil. I love the Yemeni people. And Brother Yahya made me love them even more when that thing happened. So I'm not having anything against the Yemeni people, but I just want to point out a fact that they keep their women away from the masjid. You visit their masjids, it might be 1 or 2 women. And they have big masjids. They keep their women away from the cemetery. And I told them, this is not something that we're supposed to do. This is nothing that we should do. I told them, I said, look, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was in the house of Aisha. And when he was in Aisha's house, he got up in the middle of the night and he went out. And Aisha, being the woman that she was, like any other woman, she had, this thing of jealousy. She was wondering, where's he going this time of night? Maybe he's gone to one of his other wives' house, So she had that suspicion. So what did she do? She followed him. And she followed him and she saw that he went into Al-Baqi. Al-Baqi is a cemetery in Al-Madinah. Beautiful cemetery, big, beautiful cemetery. When I say beautiful, I mean it's just a cemetery. You don't find no flowers, you don't find no tombstones, it's just a cemetery, just graves, And she followed him there, and then she realized that he was turning around, coming back. She ran. She ran home and she got into bed. When she got into bed, he came. And he heard that panting. He said, well, that image that I saw, it was in front of me. And she fessed up. She said, yeah, it was me. And she told him why, because she was an honest person. And he told her, no, well, I went to Al-Baqi because Jibril had come to me and told me that I should go there and pray for the inhabitants of the graveyard. And this is what he did. Now, he didn't tell her, Aisha, you shouldn't go to the cemetery. Women are not supposed to be in the cemetery. He didn't tell her that. In fact, he taught her du'as. He taught her supplications. He taught her things that she should say when she visits the cemetery. He taught her things that she should say when she visits the cemetery. Supplications she should make. Not just for the person that she might be coming to that particular grave, but for everybody in the cemetery. He told her things that she should say. He didn't tell her you shouldn't go in the cemetery. This is another proof. And I'm beating this horse because I think it's important. I think it's very, very important that we spread that word that women are allowed in the cemetery. Women are allowed to take 3 handfuls of dirt and throw them into the grave. Women are allowed to look into the grave to see how a person is being buried. Of course, there's no mingling and stuff like that in the cemetery. We know that. Just like in the masjid, there's no mingling. But in the Prophet's masjid back in his day, to beat this horse again, he didn't have any walls. He didn't have any rooms. You go in the Middle East now, I just left the Middle East not too long ago. I went to a masjid, boy, it was shameful, brother. Big room for the brothers. And you go in the back, the very back, in the rear, there was a wall, and then behind the wall where you put your shoes, and you look further down, there was a staircase going up, but under the staircase is a little place they had for the women. It's a daggone shame. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, do not prevent my maidservants. Allah said, don't prevent my maidservants from coming to the masjid. And Rasulullah alayhi wa sallam told us, if she asks permission, then you don't give her permission. As long as she knows how she's supposed to conduct herself when she comes to the masjid. She doesn't wear perfume. She doesn't wear things that bring attention to herself. As long as she does what she's supposed to do, there's no problem. During the time of the Rasulullah, women were in the back of the masjid. So if you was in prayer as a man in the front, because the men get more blessing for saying their prayers in the front rows, and the women get more for saying their prayers in the back rows. But during the time of the Rasulullah, he had to sort of take a brother away after we salamed out. He had to sort of take a brother away. Don't look back. This is what the message was. Don't look back, because the sisters are back there, and you might find them in a way that, perhaps it's compromising. So don't look back, But the point is, they were there in the masjid, not behind some staircase where just a little few people could fit. No. And they didn't put signs up on the masjid keep your children and your crazy children and your women away from the masjid. They didn't put those kind of signs up on the masjids like you find in some of these places today. So, when death approaches us, there are things that we should say. There are things that we should say. And I found out recently, I was listening to Sheikh Abu Salman. He was mentioning that there are some hadiths that speak to a person being on their sick bed or close to death, and you can read Surah Yasin to them, you know. So there's some authentic proof for that. But after they die, no, you're not reading Surah Yasin. There's no proof for that. That's a bid'ah, it's an innovation. There's things that people do in this religion that have nothing to do with the religion, you know, and we should be mindful of it. When somebody's on their deathbed, what should we do? I was telling the brother that my brother-in-law right now up near Washington, my wife went up there today because he has cancer, and he's a Catholic. Oh, I shouldn't say he's a Catholic, but he's a Catholic. He's not a Muslim, and if he's not a Muslim, he's a Catholic. Brother said, "But no, you shouldn't be so hard, brother. You can't say that." Well, the law said it. Allah tells them in the book, he calls them the people of the book. He calls them the Jews and the Christians. He calls them the disbelievers, the unbelievers. You know, he has other names for them. And what's the heading that all of them fit under? Kafir. So, we shouldn't have any problem saying what it is if Allah said that's what they are. So, my brother-in-law, he's a Kafir. He's in the hospital now, and they found cancer in different parts of his body. So it's just a matter of time, you know, according to what they say, that he's going to die. You know, so I like my brother-in-law, but I'm telling my wife that she should do everything she can to get him to say, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah." You know, that's important. Let that be honest. Let that be one of the last things on his tongue, you know, before he dies. You know, let that be that. Why? Because he can get Jannah. Because he can get Jannah. And if you love people, if you really care about people, you will bring them to da'wah to Allah, and you will encourage them to take their shahada. You will encourage them to take their shahada. This is important. More important than trying to just get along with them. Go along to get along. No, we don't do that. But anyway, what we do is we encourage them to take the shahada. We should understand, and you might be wondering, what about this demonstration? This demonstration only takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes at best. We'll show you that, 1, 2, 3. But some of the things surrounding it is important for us to know. Why? Because at the time of death, this is when so much bid'ah takes place. So much innovation in the religion takes place at this very sensitive time, you know, more than at any other time. But how long do we have for mourning? How long does a woman have for mourning? How long does a man have for mourning? Anybody? Yes, brother? What's that? I didn't hear you. 10 days? Anybody? Anybody else? Brother Shai?
Female, 4 months and 10 days, 3 months and 10 days. Female.
4 months and 10 days,
Brothers, no
3 months
time.
and 10 days? Huh?
None for the brothers.
Well, you got one part, right? And the other part, the men don't have any mourning period. There's no mourning period for the men. When the Rasulullah, when his son died, what was his son's name that died? Ibrahim. When his son Ibrahim died, it was very close. He was, what, about 18 months old, I think, when he died? But the Rasulullah, he cried, because some of the Sahaba said, "Rasulullah, even you?" You know, he said, "Yes, because, you know, the heartstrings, this is something close to my heart." You know, he said, "But I don't say anything other than, you know, what is true." You know, this is from Allah. This is from Allah. This is what Allah had given, and this is what Allah takes. You know, life is something that all of us, you know, we came into, and death is something that we will all experience. Like we said in 3:185, every soul shall taste death. Every soul. So, but the Rasulullah alayhi Islam didn't go through no mourning. When some of his Sahabas died or were killed, there wasn't any mourning period. There wasn't. When Ja'far, who was his cousin, really, Ja'far was like a brother to him in the house of Abu Talib, because don't forget, the Rasulullah alayhi Islam, and this is another proof that that woman didn't know what she was talking about. When she was at the grave, she said, oh, you don't know. You don't know what I've gone through. You don't know what's happening. You never experienced this. Rasulullah alayhi Islam, his father died before he was born. He never met his father. His mother died when he was about 8 years old. She took him to his father's grave so he could visit his father's grave and some of his father's people. She died on the way back at a place called Abka. She died there, you know. And then he went to his grandfather, Abu Muttalib. He stayed with him for 2 years before he died. Look at all this death. And then he went with his uncle, Abu Talib. He stayed with his uncle for 40 years. And his uncle had other children. One of the children he had was, oh man, name escapes me right now. But they get back. The point is, he's experienced all this death. Not only that, what about the year of grief in the 6th year of his prophethood? When they were boycotted for 3 years, they were put in prison. They weren't allowed to buy and sell. They weren't allowed to marry. They weren't allowed to do anything with the common folk. They were in prison, you know, for 3 years. When he came out, Abu Talib died. And then 3 years after that, but not 3 years, approximately 3 months after that, 3 months, his wife, his first wife, Lady Khadijah, radiyallahu anha, she died. Now that woman talking about, you don't know what I'm going through. What? Look what he went through. And that's just a little bit. Not to even mention some of the close Sahabas that were with him that died, that were killed. Like Sumaya, the first Muslim woman that was martyred in the Islam. One of the first martyrs. She was killed in a horrific way. Horrific way, because she said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah alayhi salam. Because she said that. And her husband was also killed. Her husband was killed. And her son would have been killed if he hadn't said what they wanted him to say. And he didn't believe him, but he took the chance. They told him, after watching them kill his mother and his father, they told him, if you curse Muhammad, we're going to let you go. He took a chance. He cursed Muhammad. And they let him go. Them stinking Kafirs, they let him go. And what did he do? He ran right to the Rasulullah alayhi salam, and he told the Rasulullah alayhi salam what he did, what had happened, what was said. Rasulullah alayhi salam told him, he said, well, what you said, was it in your heart? Was it from your heart, or was it just on your tongue? He said, no, it was just on my tongue. He said, well, if they do this to you again, then say the same thing again. The point is, mourning is not for the men. Mourning for the women. If somebody dies, your son dies, your daughter dies, your mother dies, some relative, you got 3 days. 3 days of mourning. After that, no more. Cut it off. The men, like Brother Shaheed said, have no mourning period. No mourning period. Now, if the sister's husband dies, it's different. She has what? 4 months and 10 days. 4 months and 10 days. Not to sit around and be crying. No. She's supposed to stay in the house. She's supposed to limit her, her contact with people. She's not supposed to be accepting any contracts for marriage at this time. Why? Because this is showing some respect for the family of her husband. And also, it's a period of time so she can show that she's not pregnant. A lot of other things. But it has social, commentary that goes along with that. The point is, she has 4 months and 10 days. Men, your wife dies, you don't have no time. When the Rasulullah alayhi salam, after Lady Khadijah died, and she died in the 10th year of his mission, that same year, he got married again. That same year, he married Sauda. Sauda was an older woman. that he married. So it wasn't a thing of lust or anything like that. Like some people might think, oh, you take more than one wife because you got this. No, he did it for other reasons. And she, realizing that he might divorce her at one time, she was afraid of that. She said, I'm going to give up my days to Aisha. And she did. She did. And she stayed married to the Rasulullah alayhi salam. You know, when Ja'far was killed in the Battle of Mu'tah, Ja'far was one of the sons of Abu Talib. He was the cousin of Prophet Muhammad, but he was like a brother to him because they were raised together. Don't forget, Muhammad stayed with Abu Talib for 40 years. So he was raised up with Ja'far. They were like brothers. When Ja'far died because he was killed in the Battle of Mu'tah, Rasulullah alayhi salam told the Muslims, go and prepare food for Ja'far and Ja'far's family because death has visited them. They don't have time to do that. You know, fix food for them to last them until the thought and the idea of death had sort of settled with them. You know, this is what Rasulullah alayhi salam said. Now what do? We turn around and we act just like we're Christians and Jews sometimes, Muslims. And we want to make big meals when the people die. And we want to invite people to come and sit and eat when the people die. This is not the practice of the Islam. This is something that's foreign to the Islam. This is not what we should do. And even worse, sometimes we expect the people who are in the family of the deceased to fix food for us, like the Christians and the Jews do, and we come and we eat the food that those, and this just adds to their suffering, you know, in terms of the loss of their loved ones, you know. Terrible thing. So we don't do that. But it's a practice of a lot of people amongst us. They'll have a big meal after the Janazah prayer is over, and they say, come, and we'll all sit and we'll eat. And then they'll have a special room, you know, for people to stand around who are in the family of the deceased so that you can give them condolences. This is not from the Sunnah. This is an innovation. When you know somebody died, somebody is dead, when you know somebody died, somebody is dead, you visit them at their house perhaps. You know, if you get around to it, or you see them in the street, you see them in the marketplace. Sorry for your loss, brother. You know, we belong to Allah, and to Allah we return. This is what we do. Not no special room, no special time, no special place in somebody's house or in some cemetery. We don't do that. I seen them do it in the Middle East. We don't do it. Another thing that they do that we shouldn't do, they'll sit around and have big tents in the street, and they'll hire somebody to recite the Quran. And they want them to recite that Quran in a very sad way, And they'll pay them money to do that so that the person who is dead will get the benefit of that recitation. This is not from the Sunnah of the Rasulullah. We don't do that. And we shouldn't be picking up the practices from some of these people. You know, a lot of people say, as people in America, you know, we're new to the Islam and we don't really understand, you know. Well, I tell you, we're in bad shape, no doubt about it. But many of those who are born Muslims, believe me when I tell you, they have left the true religion. They have left it. And they need dawah as much as many of us do. So we shouldn't be pointing the fingers at them, and they shouldn't be pointing the fingers at us. We should all be looking to get this religion the way Allah revealed it to His Rasul, and not mix it with anything else, culture or anything else. We have to be prepared to do that. Now, Zainab, the daughter of Rasulullah, she died. And when she died, the Rasulullah told her sisters that was washing her body and shrouding her body to wash her 3 times, at least 3 times. And when you finish washing her, let me know. This is what he told her. They washed her, and when they finished, they told the Rasulullah that they had finished, and he brought in Izar. You know, the Izar is the covering. The Izar is the covering that the Muslims wear. Some Muslims, the bottom covering. Like if you go on Umrah, you put on the Izar, and then you have the Rizza, which is the top piece, you know. But he told them to take his Izar, he gave it to them, and wrap her in it. So she was wrapped in that one garment, that one piece, that one piece. Now, we find sisters and brothers that want to be wrapped in, you know, things that are different than what the Rasulullah Islam prescribed for us. You know, this is important. Now, when the Rasulullah Islam, when he died, it was a big thing. The Sahabas didn't know what to do. In fact, they were in the room with his body. He was still clothed. And they wasn't sure if they should take his clothes off of him or not. They wasn't sure. Should they undress him and do the washing like they would do anybody else or not? So they sat down in the chairs in the room, and there's 4 or 5 of them. Ali radiallahu anhu was one of them. And they fell asleep. When they fell asleep, their chin hit their chest. And when they woke up, they all talked about the same dream that they had. They saw a man in the corner of the room, and that man told them, and no doubt it was Jibril, told them to wash the Rasulullah alayhi salam with his clothes on. And this is what they did. They washed him with his clothes on. And when they shrouded him in 3 shrouds. 3 shrouds. Not 4, not 5. There wasn't a hood. There was nothing else. 3 shrouds is what the Rasulullah alayhi salam was shrouded with. Now, why would you and I want to have 4 or 5 or more shrouds? Why? When the Rasulullah alayhi salam only had 3. Rasulullah alayhi salam made it clear to the people what we should do at the time of death. That's what we should stick with. We should stick with that, and we shouldn't go anywhere else. Now, I must tell you that we have dalil for what we say. Here's a book that you should get. It's called The Inevitable Journey. It's Funeral Regulations and Exhortations, 2nd edition. And Muhammad al-Jabali was the one who authored this book. But what he did was he took 99.9% of what Muhammad Nasruddin al-Albani said in his book, in his work on Janazah. That's the best book. It's in Arabic. I think they may have translated it now, I'm not sure. But that's the best book that you can get on Janazah. Because the people were of the mind that there was a lot of information about Janazah, but it was here and there, and it was all mixed up. One would say this, they wanted somebody of authority, and they couldn't find anybody better than Sheikh al-Albani. And they asked him to do a book on Janazah, and he did. He did. He put that work together.
It's in English.
It's in English now too? Alhamdulillah. I gotta make sure I get it. But this brother, Muhammad al-Jabali, he put it in English. 99.9% of what Sheikh al-Albani said. And Sheikh al-Albani, if anybody knows anything about Sheikh al-Albani, he's considered to be the Mujaddid of our us, the Mujaddid of this day, for the Muslim world, for real. Not a fake Mujaddid. We know we get one every 100 years. Anyway, Muhammad Nasruddin al-Albani, what Muhammad Jabali did in this book, answers a lot of questions for us. And there's so much wealth in this book. You think it's just on funerals, but it's more, you know, some of the materials that surround the funeral, some of the bid'ahs that people brought. And a lot of times people don't want to do things unless they can find some of their people who are saying the same thing. People got to look like you, you know. Alhamdulillah, I'm not that kind of Muslim anymore. I used to be, but not anymore. But for those who are still like that, Here's a brother that looks like me. This brother, Dr. Abu Amina Bilal Phillips, he wrote this book, The Funeral Rites in Islam. And in his book, the same thing that you will find in Muhammad Jabali's book, the same thing that you will find in Muhammad Nasruddin al-Albani's book. And then this brother, Ibn Qayyum al-Jawziyah, he wrote this book, 4 volumes. And look at this. He was on a journey. The journey he was making Umrah. And back in the day when you made Umrah, man, it might take you months to make Umrah. You know, because they did it on foot. They did it on camels, horseback, and like that. You know, so it took them a period of time for them to get to their destination. It wasn't just an easy thing. Like now, we jump on the plane, you know, 16 hours later, we're in Mecca. It wasn't like that back then. He wrote this book while he was on the journey to Umrah. And it's 4 volumes. And each volume is about as thick as this. And it's footnoted. He did all of this from memory. From memory. From memory. I was looking at something that I saw on YouTube the other day from Brother Mustafa's masjid, and I was looking at them kids that were reciting Quran, and they had such beautiful memorization. And you know, when you're young, you could do stuff like that, you know. Here's a brother that was studying from the time he was young. He was memorizing books and going into them in depth, studying them in depth, studying at the feet of other scholars to learn this information. So much so that he was able to write this book while he was on that journey without referring to any other book, because he didn't bring any other books with him. He was just writing this while he was on that journey. 4 volumes from memory with footnotes. So we have proof, we have evidence, we have dalil, and we call the people's attention to it all the time. Okay, let's look at now at this Janazah, this body. One of the things that we want to make sure of is that during the time of the washing and the shrouding, that the aura is always covered. And we know what the aura is, right? For the man, the aura is what? From his navel to the knees. Right, what the Sheikh said? From the navel to the knees. That's absolutely right. And for the woman, her aura is what? Sisters, you can speak up if you want to. Huh?
The chest down.
From her neck down to her shins or her ankles, as the sister said. That's her aura. So when we're washing, sisters, when you're washing the sister, you have to keep that aura covered at all times. You got your gloves on, you got your wash rags, and you got your water. And your water should be just like you would take a bath yourself or shower yourself. Nice and warm, not too cold, not too hot, just right. Like you're gonna do it yourself, you know? And you wash, right? We're gonna make this one a man. So brothers, when you're washing this brother, you wanna keep his aura covered. You wanna make sure that he's covered from his navel to his knees, huh? At all times, no matter what. Now we got the water. And we want to be mindful that when we do this washing, we want to keep what we see, especially if it's something bad, we want to keep it to ourselves. You know, some people might die a hard death. Imagine you going out and telling somebody he died a hard death, he all twisted up and everything else, angel of death, looked like he might have snatched his heart, you know, his soul out and left him in that state. Imagine you go on and talk, oh man, I was here washing that brother, and oh man, you should have seen his face. And his family gets to hear that stuff. His family gets to hear that stuff. Imagine what you're doing. So Allah tells us through the Rasulullah Islam, if you keep that stuff to yourself, there are barakats for you. There are blessings for you. If you keep it to yourself, Allah says that He will forgive you 40 sins. Some say it would give you 40 major sins. I don't know about that. But the point is that Allah will give you great blessings if you keep that stuff to yourself. Now, if something good you see, well, you might mention that, but, you know, the idea is to keep what you see while you're washing to yourself. And don't take no money for it. Get those blessings. Don't take money for washing and shrouding the Muslim. I've been doing this for years, and I enjoy doing it. You know, I found my niche. I love doing it because, well, I need all the blessings I can get. I need all the blessings I can get. So, we got the water, and we're going to wash this brother. Now, when we wash him with the water, we got gloves on, we got a washcloth, we got a bucket with water, we put it on, right? The first thing we're going to do is wash his private parts. We're going to go under, and somebody's going to wash his private parts without looking, right? Without looking. And then we're going to raise his left leg up, and at the same time, we're going to press lightly on his stomach. Why? Because we want to see if anything is going to come out. You know what I'm talking about. We want to look and see if anything is coming out. And we're looking at the water while we're doing this, you know. And if nothing's coming out, then alhamdulillah. But if something's coming out, you got to keep washing until it stops. If you can't stop it, then you got to do what? You got to get your cotton. Yes, yes, sister.
What would you remove if they have like stuff from the hospital or decide not to?
Good point. Body will usually come, they'll have a tag on the foot, they'll have a hospital bracelet on, and stuff of this nature, and sometimes they'll have instruments that are in their body, because they have tubes going up to IVs and whatnot, you know? Those name tags and things, you cut them off. Toe tags, you cut them off, get rid of them. These other things, you cut them off too. But, if you find that you're going to have a problem, it's going to cause a lot of bleeding, because remember, we don't believe in autopsies, and we don't believe in what you call that stuff that they do? Embalming the body. So the body still has the fluids in it, the liquids, the blood, etc. So if those instruments that they use for the IV, if you find that that's going to be a problem, it's going to cause much more bleeding, leave it alone. Leave it alone. Okay? But if you can take it out with no problem, take it out. Take it out. Okay? That's important. It's a good question. Now, if you can't stop whatever it is that's coming, maybe it's blood, or maybe it's urine, or maybe it's feces, you can't stop it. Now you got to use cotton. You take the cotton and you put it in that place where it's coming from until you can stop it. It's the only time you use cotton. Some people say, no, you put cotton in the nose, put cotton in the mouth, put cotton in the ears, put cotton in the anus, put cotton. No. You only put the cotton where the fluids are coming from that you can't stop. If there's no fluids coming from it, there's no need to put cotton in it. Is that clear? I hope it is. Okay. We wash the brother, and we find that nothing is coming. Right. We always have somebody that's going to keep count. Always have somebody there that his job or her job is only to keep count. Why? Because we have to wash the body an odd number of times. At least 3, but an odd number of times. So we find that the body is dirty, really dirty, and you almost never see that. Almost never. The Muslim is not najas. You almost never see that. So 3 times is usually sufficient. The first time, you're using nothing but water, clear water, and you're washing the private parts first, and then you go to the right side. When you talk about the right side, you're going to do the head. The head includes the face, and the right hand, and the right foot, and then the rest of the right side. Putting that water there, and you're washing the rest of the right side, including the arm, and don't forget the armpits. And you know what the fitr is, right? Everybody knows what the fitr is. It's something that the Muslim is supposed to do at least about every 40 days. Yes. Yes, clip the nails, Clip that mustache so it's not in your mouth. You know, clip them toenails. And you're only gonna do this once. Have that circumcision. I don't think anybody's gonna do it more than once. Do it once in your lifetime. I don't care how old you are. You come to the Islam, you should have circumcision. Some of the people of history, when we read back, some of the Sahabas, we see they were older. Look how old Abu Bakr was when he came to the Islam. Look at some of the other people, what their ages were. Circumcision is one of the acts of fitr that the men should do. You know, mustache, the fingernails, the toenails, the pubic hairs, and the hair under the arms. I want to tell you, and I know some of you brothers know, when you watch some of these Muslims, and I ain't calling no names because we keep that to ourselves, but I've watched Muslims, man, they had a Sherwood forest under their arms. You say, my goodness, this brother didn't practice the fitr. I didn't say it, but you know, it comes to my mind. It just makes me think, what was wrong with this Muslim? He wasn't practicing the fitr. And at a time like this, the washing and the shrouding, I'm not cutting your pubic hairs. You're not cutting mine. You're not going to wash them. You're not going to cut them hairs under my arms. You're not going to do it. You're not trimming my mustache. You're not going to trim my fingernails. I got claws. You're not going to do that. And the sister that has them long, beautiful braids, them little tiny micro braids, come time for washing her body, her hair should be undone. But who's going to spend a week untying those braids, taking the braids loose? I don't know anybody that's going to do that. So she's going to meet the angels in the grave with them braids, you know, like they are. But if there's hair, long hair, it should be untied, unbraided, you know, and it should be washed also. When you're washing their head and the face, that's also a part of it. You do the hair. This is something that you do. If it's a brother with long hair, you do the same thing. And then when everything is finished, when you finish washing and whatnot, then you take those braids and you put them in the three, you know, and you put them behind the head, not in front of the head, like some of the books you might read say, put them in front of the head. You put them behind the head. This is what you do. And if it's a woman, okay. She got that nail polish on, and she can't even pray in because she can't make wudu properly, and wudu is a prerequisite to the prayer. But she got them pretty nails. Nobody's going to be cleaning all the nails off. Yes? Oh, I thought you were volunteering to clean the nails.
We do have the fingernail polish.
Huh?
We do take the fingernail polish.
Well, that's great. If you do that, that's
Just in
good.
case.
But all sisters are not going to do that. You know, that's not really the response. Well, if you do it, alhamdulillah, you know, but in most cases, that's not going to be done. So that should encourage our sisters not to use that stuff in the first place. They have henna, you know, like brothers put in their beard. They got henna that women put on their nails and put on their skin, you know, beautify themselves and whatnot. Hey, you know, use that. It's permeable. You know, water goes through it. You know, it's not like that nail polish. So that's a no. Now, we washed this brother how many times so far?
Half.
Thank you, brother. Who said that? Yes, we washed him a half a time. We only washed the right side in the front. We didn't even wash the back yet. Let's do the back, because now the brothers on that side are going to hold him over so somebody can wash his back with water. That's the first washing, right? Now that's a half. That's a complete half. Then we're going to do the left side. We go to the left side, we start with the head, always starting with the head. It includes the face. You don't want water to go in the mouth, you don't want water to go in the nose. You want to do the left hand, then you want to do the left foot, and then you want to do the rest of the left side, right? Just with water. Now the brothers on this side are going to hold him over so his back can be done. You do his back, right?
Brother Yaqub,
How many times is that?
you keep saying the brothers, how many brothers is necessary in order to do it
It should-
proficiently?
It shouldn't take no more than 3 brothers, right? 3 brothers. And if the brother is a big brother or something, then it might take 4 or 5 of us, because we have to manipulate the body, you know, but it shouldn't take more than that.
And the question on the counting, so you on this side, you did half the body
Mhm.
3 times, and did this
No,
side 3
no,
times?
no.
One time.
No, I'm only doing it one time.
One time on one side.
Right, one time. One time. And now I'm on the left side, and I'm doing it one time. Okay? So now we did the front left, and we did the back left. Now, how many times is that we wash the body?
One time.
One time. One time. That was one washing. Now, what we're gonna do, we're gonna wash it the second time. Got our water. This time we're gonna put some soap in it. They say lotus leaves if you have it, and we usually don't. So we take some soap, you know, regular soap, you know, that soap you have at your sink in the bathroom, that liquid soap, just a little bit. A couple of squeaks on the top, put it in that gallon of water, mix it up good, right? You take that rag now, and you start again, right? Head first, right hand, right foot, the rest of the right side on the front, right? And then the brothers will pull them over, and somebody will wash his back, get the back. Oh, she's talking to me, she's talking to that kid. Yeah, so how many times is that now?
1.5.
1.5. Now, we're gonna do the same thing on the left side. Start with the head. Do the left hand, do the left foot. Don't forget between the toes, between the fingers, you know, and then the rest of the left side, right? And then somebody's gonna pull him over, and they're gonna wash his back. Wash his back. The whole time, his aura is covered. The whole time, the aura is covered, right? How many times is that we wash? 2 times. We wash 2 times. First time with just water. The second time with soap and water, right? Now we're gonna make a third washing. Get rid of the water that you have, get a fresh bucket of water, and then you get that bucket of water, and you take the camphor. Take this bucket, let everybody smell it. Take your time.
I just want to mention that this is establishes cleanliness is next to godliness.
Oh, no doubt,
I just wanted to say that.
no doubt. Cleanliness is definitely next to
You want
godliness,
to smell it?
and you don't have to be religious to believe that. But this is the camphor. We take the camphor, and we only need a couple of drops. If you smell it, it smells very strong. And you can usually get this at that sister shop, promoting the Muslim. What's the name of that shop right there on Murchison Road? Tassim's shop. She has oils and things, and this is one of the things that you can get from her shop. And I don't think it costs more than about $15 for something that size. Or you can go to Amazon, and you can find it on Amazon. That's where I found that. And they usually give you a good price. I don't want to say a better price because I want to promote the Muslim. But the point is, you can get this, what we call it? Camphor. You can get this camphor. That's what you want to use.
How many drops in the water?
You just need a few drops, just to give you the smell. 3, 4, 5, maybe even 2, depending upon the strength of the camphor that you have. Now, another thing that you can use that I wouldn't recommend it is take mothballs. You know the mothballs your mother used to throw in the cabinets, in the drawers, and in the closet. And, you know, you can take mothballs, crush it, boil it, and use that. But the problem that you're gonna have, them little teeny pieces, man, you're never gonna get rid of them. So if you pour it on the body, it's gonna be hard for you to wash it off, to rinse it off, to get rid of it, you know? So I wouldn't recommend it, but I'm just giving you the idea that that's also available. Yes, sister?
Before that was available in the oil, we used to get the blocks from Walmart, and then while we're doing the first wash, just let it sit. So if you can't get anything else, just let it sit in the hot water and dissolve.
good. I didn't even know about that, so I'm glad
Yeah,
you bring
Walmart
mentioned
and
that.
the drugstores have the blocks.
Okay, that's good. So, this is what we want, and this is the best thing that we have. What we say it is? Camphor? We want to use that in the water. Now, we're going to wash the body the third time. Huh? Same procedure, except now we got rid of the washcloths that we had. You know, we got new, clean washcloths, all right? We're going to take that washcloth, we're going to start with the right side. When we start with the right side, we're going to start with the head, the right hand, the right foot, and the rest of the right side. Somebody's pouring water at this time, you know, while we're doing all of this washing, right? And after we got the right done, somebody's going to be pulling them over so somebody can wash the back with the camphor. He got his rag soaked with the camphor and he's washing his back. How many times is that? 2.5. That's 2.5. Now we do the same thing to the left side, right? Start with the head, left hand, left foot, rest of the left side, and then hold him over and do his back, right? How many times is that? That's 3 times. We're finished. We use the camphor in the water now as a rinse, also to take away, you know, any soap that was still there, but it also leaves a nice odor. It leaves a nice smell. This is what we want. And the next thing, yes, brother.
Is there recitation at the time that you want?
Who knows the recitation that you say at the time of washing? Brother's asking. Huh? There is none. There is none. I was just waiting to see if somebody's going to be caught out.
Do you have one? Drink? Yes.
Yes, sister. There's no proof for that. No authentic proof for that. There's no dua that you say during the time of the washing. There's no authentic proof for that, you know, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm glad that you mentioned that. But we have to be careful of some of the things that we do and some of the things that we say. There's no dua that you say during the time of washing. In fact, you should be respectful and you should be quiet and think about your own mortality. This is what we should be thinking about. Now,
He's looking for water. That's why he passed by.
hey, the water's out here, brother.
Here.
In there.
Oh, yeah.
So there's no special duas. Anything else? Yes, brother Shaggy.
So the research has already been done that there is no sunnah of that saying anything, chanting anything.
No, there's no chanting. There's no chanting or anything. There's no dua. You know, you find brothers when they come to the cemetery, depending upon the country that they come from, you know, and in America we have everybody here. This is truly a melting pot. And as Muslims, we know, because we don't discriminate, we have people of all nationalities, you know, and we accept everybody, you know, but they bring with them some of their baggage from their countries. And some of the baggages they bring is this chanting and stuff. Everybody wants to get a hold of the body that's on the transport. They want to hold it, they want to grab it. Sometimes they want to take it and put their country flag on top of it, all that stuff. Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, Subhanallah. They do all of that, but it has nothing to do with the religion. That was something that they did culturally. That was something that many of them got caught up in, that they did back home. But they don't have any proof for it. Only thing they know is this is what the sheikh said. This is what the sheikh did. The sheikh said do this. Their milkshake. The bottom line is, we don't do that. Remember when Khomeini, in 1979, they had that revolution in Iran? Remember when Khomeini died, and they had his Janazah, and the people were all in the street, and they had his casket, he was in the casket, they were all up there, Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, and everybody was trying to grab hold, and what did they do? They dropped him, boom, hit the ground. We don't do that. That has nothing to do with the religion. That's not a part of what the Rasulullah left for us. So we should stay away from things like that. Remember I said in the beginning, we're in bad shape in here in America, but there's a lot of Muslims in bad shape in other places in the world. You know, and they need dawah too. And we should be free with giving dawah to them. Not always looking to them like they have the answer for us. We got to find the answer together in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Rasulullah alayhi salam. That's where the success lies. When you know that, believe that, understand that, and act upon that. You don't point the fingers at them, and they don't point the fingers at us. But we work together, collectively. That's what's important. We finished washing this brother. Now, we have him on the table where the water runs out. Yes, brother.
Washing the oral area, the private parts, it's only one time.
Well,
Is it? I'm asking.
no, actually, you're going to be washing that again and again too.
Okay.
Because you're going to be reaching in to his thighs, you know, and stuff like that. In fact, if you got something left over from the camphor, usually what I do is I pour it in that area.
What's his question again? 'Cause
He said the washing of the private parts, you only do it once. I said, no, you're actually going to be doing that again and again too. But you want to make sure when you do it the first time that you're doing it good and you're doing it right. You know, this is what's important. Because you're right, you're not going to be spending a lot of time there. You're not going to be doing that. You know, but it's inevitable that water is going to be coming in that area, you know, through his covering of his aura. You know. So we're finished with the washing of this brother. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to shroud him. I need a volunteer.
I have a question.
Yes, sister.
What about when you wash the nose and stuff like that?
You know, people say that you make wudu for the person, but in all actuality, you're not making wudu for them. Because when we make wudu, we take water in our mouth and in our nose and our nostrils, and then we blow it out, right, of our nostrils. You know, we don't want any water to get into the nose of this brother or this sister that we're doing. If we find that there's any crust or boogers coming out the nose, that's part of the washing away. You wash that away with your cloth, but you don't put any water up in their nostrils. You don't do that. You know, you don't do that. And you don't want water to go in their mouth. In fact, if their mouth is open, you want to push their mouth closed so that you don't get water in there. And if you can't push it closed all the way, you want to make sure that when you're washing and you're pouring water, that you don't pour any water into their mouths. Why? Because when you manipulate the body, when you move the body around, that water is going to come out. Their system's not working. They're not going to be able to drink that and swallow that. That water is going to come out. And what's it going to do to the shroud? It's going to ruin the shroud. You know, especially if it comes out and it has blood in it, which it usually will have, you know. So you don't want to put water in the mouth, water in the nose, and like that. You don't want to do that. So the idea of washing the wudu parts of the body, limit that. You're washing the wudu parts of the body, but you're not doing everything that you would ordinarily do in wudu. Any more questions? Okay, so we finished washing this brother. Now we can just take his aura away, right?
No, thank you.
No.
No.
The aura is always covered. Always covered. The aura is always covered. And what we have to do now, we have three sheets here. I need a brother to help me. Thank you, Brother Jalil. Stand on that side.
Don't you dry a little?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. We didn't dry him?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's dry this brother. Let's get a towel. We take a towel, another towel, and we dry his whole body. Dry him everywhere. Dry him as much as possible. And then we also dry the table. We have two tables, because it's a table we're going to transport him to, and that's the table with the sheets on it. And then we have the table that we washed them on. And the table that we washed them on is right here. There's no sheets on it, it's just the table, and he's washed on it. Now we're going to dry him. We take a towel, and we dry him up real good, and we dry the table up real good. Okay? And then we're going to transport him to the table where the shrouds are. All right? Just imagine in your mind, we've already removed him from the table where we washed him, and we put him here on the table where we're gonna shroud him. Okay? All right, so we finished drying. We're gonna go from the right side. We're gonna put the shroud from the right side over him. Make sure that we have enough up here at the head. Right? And somebody is gonna hold the thing and another person is gonna remove the covering of the hour. Right? And we're gonna tuck this good. Make sure we have enough at the feet coming over. Okay. Then we get the left side of the first. This is number one. Take it, bring it over, tuck it around. Okay? Y'all seen the mummy, right? So the idea is you want to make him look like the mummy. You want to wrap him tight, or wrap her tight. This is important. And then, the last sheet, well, not the last sheet, but the second one. You want to come and tuck it. Right? Come and tuck it. Get the left side of that second sheet.
All those will be white.
Well, this is another thing. Rasulullah alayhi salam said that white is good for what we should wear. The white garment, he said that's the best garment for the Muslim to wear. That's the best. He said, but also, when you deal with the shroud, you can also use a stripe shroud. You know, maybe the shroud will be red and white, blue and white, green and white, or, you know, another color, striped. So if you want to practice the sunnah and you don't want to leave any sunnah behind, maybe you'll have 2 white shrouds and 1 striped shroud, right? You're practicing the sunnah. And then don't forget, when some of the Sahabas were buried, there wasn't much of a shroud for them. When they covered them up at the head with the shroud, then their feet were uncovered. If they covered their feet with the shroud, then the head was uncovered. So what did they do? They covered the top part of the body and they put what they call a sweet grass over the lower part of the body, or sweet grass to cover it. This is what they did. In fact, that's what happened with the Sahabas, some of the Sahabas that were buried after the Battle of Uhud. You know, there were people who Rasulullah alayhi salam told them, make sure that when people die, that they're buried where they die. Don't take them away from, you know, the battlefield. This is what Sophia, one of the relatives of Rasulullah alayhi salam, she wanted to take Hamza away. And Rasulullah alayhi salam didn't even want her to see Hamza's body, because remember, Hamza's body was mutilated. You know, remember the woman, she became Muslim. She became Muslim. She took her shahada. She became Muslim. So we can't say anything bad about her, but we can talk about what she did. She hired Janazah, what's his name? He was a spear thrower, and he took that spear, and she hired him to go and kill Hamza, because Hamza had killed, you know, her relatives. But his body was mutilated. Rasulullah alayhi salam saw her coming, and he told her son, go, stop Sophia, don't let her go there. Stop her before she gets there, you know? Rasulullah alayhi salam told him that, and the brother went running, and he saw Sophia. He said, Rasulullah alayhi salam said, don't. She said, get away from me. She was a strong woman. She pushed him away, and she kept on about her business. And finally, the brother told her, he said, Rasulullah alayhi salam said that you should stop. What did she do? She was a Muslim. She stopped. That's all she needed to hear. The Messenger of Allah said, stop. She stopped. And none of the people were allowed to bring anybody from that battlefield back to al-Baqi, which is what they wanted to do. They buried them right there where they died. You know, this is important. Today we find brothers, I want to go back to Yemen, or I want to go back to Afghanistan, or I want to be buried in California. I was raised in Mexico. I want to go back. No, where you die, that's where you should be buried. Remember when Aisha came to visit her brother's grave, Abdul Rahman. She came to visit her brother's grave. And the people asked her after she visited his grave, his grave was in El-Baki. They asked her, how did she find, the grave? Was everything satisfactory? And she said, yeah, everything was good, except my brother died 12 miles away from here. He should have been buried there. Now, back in the day, 12 miles was a big thing. 12 miles was a big thing. That was a journey. Today, man, we blink an eye, 12 miles like that gin. 12 miles is nothing for us. But the point is, he should have been buried where he died. This is the sunnah of the Rasulullah alayhi salam, and that's what we should follow. So, now where are we? We're on the third. Now, one of these sheets, ordinarily, what we would do is, we would cut a piece on the seam in the end so we can make 3 wraps, 2 or 3 wraps. But we're not going to do that today. But just presume that we did. We're going to take this sheet, I'm going to wrap, going to go under the brother, nice and tight. Take the 3rd sheet from the left side, and we wrap. And then, I don't know, some of you may have looked on YouTube, somebody's putting a video out of how to do the Janazah. And it's a nice thing that they're doing. They make it nice and quick, but that's not the way that we bury out there. That's not the way that we shroud our people. So you should know, that's like a cartoon. That's not the real deal, all right? This is the way we're supposed to do it, inshallah ta'ala. Then we take one of those ties that we have, we tie it at the head, another one we tie at the foot, and perhaps we put a 3rd one right here, and we just put a bow. We don't put a knot, because when this body is laid in the grave, this tie has to be loosened, taken loose. Not taken off, but we have to open that tie. We have to open that tie. We have to open that tie, and then we do what we do in terms of putting them, placing them in the
So
grave.
you're saying you cut strips off the shroud to make the tie?
Yes. And usually, I'll cut it off the first shroud. So that there will be the inner one that has the ties cut off of it. Yes, brother.
What's the purpose of loosening the ties?
I don't know. Allahu Alam. But I know that's one of the instructions. And we know from the hadith of Rasulullah alayhi salam that when the 2 angels come to visit that brother or that sister in that grave, he's made to sit up, right, and answer questions. You know what the 3 questions are, right? Yeah, he's made to answer those 3 questions, and this is a point, where the brother might be terrified. I don't know, but loosening those ties will make it easy for him to sit up and answer those questions. Other than that, I don't know.
Please repeat those questions.
What are the questions? What are the 3 questions that we should know in the grave? The first question: who's your Lord? This is what. What's the angel's name? The 2 angels. Munkar and Nakir. Who's your Lord? You in the grave. First question is being put to you. What is your religion? I don't care if you say Islam or El Islam. You better thank Allah that you're able to say, you're able to remember. Who's that man that they were talking about? Better say Muhammad. Don't say, I don't know, but I heard some people saying. No, you don't want to be one of them. And I believe, this is my belief, that the only way we answer those questions correctly is if we're living it. Is if we're living it every day. And we're reflecting, we're thinking about death every day, every single day. The prayer that we're making is like our last prayer, maybe. So we're thinking about it. We're living it. We have thoughts about meeting those angels in the grave and being able to answer those questions. So you're living it. So if you're not living it, I don't think you're going to be able to answer it. My opinion. That's just my opinion. I am no shake. I don't just what I'm getting. That's my understanding. Inshallah ta'ala. So now the brother's ready, and we want to have Janazah prayer. Now we're going to have the Janazah prayer. Where should we have this Janazah prayer? Where do the Christians have their prayers? Inside, huh? Where do the Jews have their prayers? Huh? Graveyards? In the church. Usually indoors. And Muslims seem to be following that same practice. You know, it's the practice of the Muslim not to have janazahs in the masjid. I didn't say it was haram to have janazahs in the masjid, but this is the last place. You know, this is one of the last places that you want to have it. The janazah should be outside, like the Eid prayer. The janazah should be outside. Reason for that is because when you come in the masjid, you got to follow the rules of the masjid. And the rules of the masjid, the first row has to be filled in first before you can fill in the second row. But when it comes to the janazah, you want to have at least 3 rows. At least 3 rows for janazah prayer. You can't do that. If we was in the masjid here, we probably, if it was just brothers here, we probably could just get 2 rows. Barely get 2 rows. We probably would only be able to get 1 row. And then the sisters would form another row. So the best place is to have it outside. That's the best place in the janazah area. During the time of the Rasulullah Islam, they had the janazah prayers outside. You know, the Rasulullah Islam, one day he used to come in the masjid and he saw that there was a woman that he didn't see. She used to come by and clean the masjid, keep it up to par, you know, and he didn't see her. And so he asked about her. And they told him that she died last night or the other night. And he said, how come nobody told me? He was very upset, very upset. This is also a sign of racism, as far as I'm concerned, in the Islam. Because don't think it didn't exist, it did exist. Remember, they even said things about Bilal and some of the other Sahabas, and Rasulullah Islam admonished them for saying things like that. He admonished them for making statements such as that. He said, in Islam, we don't have that. So Rasulullah Islam told them to take him to this black woman's grave. And they went to the grave, and he had his Sahabas line up behind him for the salat. They lined up for the janazah prayer, and he made the prayer for her. And he told them, he said, it's important that I make the prayer for them because Allah, you understand, will make a light for them in their graves, you know, because of the prayer, you know, that he would make. So he said, never do that. If somebody died, let me know. No excuse. This is what he said. He told them. And it wasn't just for this black woman that died. There were other people that died that they didn't tell him about because they didn't want to disturb him. They thought that he was, you know, busy enough. And he said, no, let me know. And this is what happened. We know also that this was one of the exceptions in terms of the praying, because we don't pray in the graveyards. The graveyard is one of the places we don't pray. And we don't take the Quran. We don't take Allah's book into the cemetery. Oh, brother, I just want to read Surah Yasin. We don't take Allah's book in the cemetery. The book is not going to benefit the dead. The benefit for the dead is when they were living. You know, the Quran is for the living. You know, we shouldn't bring the Quran and supplicate, pray. We shouldn't pray in the cemetery. The exception was when Rasulullah Islam made that prayer for the woman. You might have an exception in your life because this might be the only opportunity you have to pray for somebody in the cemetery. So should you do it? Yeah. Because there's extenuating circumstances. I saw your hand. Okay. I remember there was a brother who died way up, I forget the place they call it, but it was about 2 hours and a half away from here. And no, it's in the opposite direction. And the brothers and his wives, he had 2 wives, and they called me and they wanted to get him there to the cemetery, but they didn't see how they could do it. Plus, there was a money problem and everything else because they had to deal with them Kafirs and, you know. So we made arrangements for them and they were on their way. But by the time they got there, it was dark. It was dark. But what were we gonna do? It was extenuating circumstances. So we prayed over the brother and we buried the brother, you know, at night. It was extenuating circumstances. We could have left him until the next day. That wouldn't have been good. People had to come 2.5 hours just to get to where they got. And they had to spend half a day fighting with Kafirs to get his body released. And now we're gonna keep his body till the next day? That means they have to stay another, no. We buried the brother that same night. And that was one of the times when it's forbidden to bury. You know, we have times when it's forbidden to pray. Those are the times it's also forbidden to bury somebody, unless there's extenuating circumstances.
You know, I just have a comment. In our evolution here, and I'm talking about when I say here, the Fayetteville, Cumberland County area, we have evolved and we have become more proficient in what we are doing in terms of Janazah. And I know at one time they used to put a shirt. Used to put the brothers in a shirt. We had a shirt. They cut out the sleeves and stuff, and they put them in a shirt. But I see that as the knowledge comes, and we become more proficient in what we're doing, we have moved more towards the Sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And this area here is a long ways ahead of many other areas when it comes to Janazah and the proper way to do it.
No doubt about it.
I just wanted to make that comment because sometimes we don't value what we have
That's true.
as like we should value.
That's true.
And I have been to those and no one really kind of touched where we are at in this area when it comes to the gymnastics.
And some of the good things that happen in our area also is that we have a wash house. You know, we have a wash house where we can do the washing and the shrouding, and it's built right there, you know, at the cemetery. You know, Sheikh Wali, a lot of you brothers remember Sheikh Wali, especially the older brothers. He used to be the air conditioning, heating and air conditioning. He used to always come out to the masjid with his blue uniform on, you know, and he died. When he died, may Allah have mercy on him and grant him the highest part of Jannah. When he died, some monies that were left were given to the cemetery so that that building, that wash building, could be constructed. You know, and we constructed that. I think it was about $10,000 or something like that. It was given. So we constructed that, and then we also constructed the prayer area, the fencing area that you see. You know, and you know there are no graves there. There's just that prayer area. The wall is there, so that we can have the Janazah prayer there, and then walk right across into the cemetery and bury the brother or the sister. You know, so this is what you call Sadaqah Jariyah. You know, we have a sign on the door that mentions the brother's name. When you walk to the cemetery, read it. Don't wait till somebody dies. You can come up to the cemetery and visit and make dua for the people that are there. You know, this is something that we should get in the practice of, especially many of us that are pretty close to death. When you look at us, you know, we're old. You know, I know myself when I'm 74 or 75, I don't know. But I see some brothers that about my same age, might be 1 or 2 older. But you're getting close to that grave, man. You pointing at Jalil. He's older than me. How old are you, Jalil?
I'm 54.
Ah. Yeah, you still got milk around your ears. You got a question, brother?
Yes. You mentioned about untying the ties.
Yes.
Did you talk about the positioning of the body once the person's in there?
Not yet. We didn't do it yet, but we will do it. And you hold me to it. But let me say this to you first. Go ahead, brother. Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
You mentioned about that incident about the cleaning lady, and that's, I think, I heard from other scholars, this is a dalil that Janazah can be prayed more than once. The Prophet ﷺ prayed for that lady in the graveyard for the second time.
Well,
Is that your understanding?
no, it was important, like he told the Sahabas, that he should make prayer for her and for anybody else that dies, because that would make light come in their grave. Now, the fact that she already had the Janazah prayer, because they buried her, and I'm sure they buried her with Janazah prayer. No, we don't make multiple prayers. For example, the Najasi, the ruler of Abyssinia, you know, when the Muslims came to him, you know the story, and the Muslims were told what they were told. They made the statements. As a matter of fact, Jaffa, the one that was killed in the Battle of Muta that we spoke about earlier, he was the one that was the spokesperson for that group of Muslims. And he told Najasi, because Najasi was asking them questions, and the last question that was asked, because the Quraysh, they thought, oh, I got him now, we got him now. Just tell him that, what do they say about Isa ibn Maryam? What do they say about Jesus? And Jaffa answered. And what did he answer with? He answered with the 19th surah of the Holy Quran, Surah to Maryam. He responded. And Najasi told them, after hearing that answer, that the difference between them and us, he drew a line, is as thin as that line. And the ministers who was in Najasi's ministry, they didn't like that answer, because they said, no, he's not just like us. He was more than just a prophet. They didn't like the answer that the king, Najasi, was saying, no, this is what we believe, and nothing more, nothing less. They didn't like that. Najasi, remember, he had become Muslim, but his people weren't ready for it. They weren't ready for it, so he had to practice what we call taqiyya. He had to hide his faith, hide his belief. But when he died, the Rasulullah received word from Jibril. It's the only way he could have received the word from Jibril, to know that he just died, you know, that day. And Rasulullah told the Muslims to line up and make prayer. We're going to pray in absence of the body of the Nagas of Abyssinia. We're going to pray for him. And why did he do that? Because there was nobody else there to pray for Najasi. There was nobody else there to pray for him. So he made the prayer. He made the prayer in absence of the body. We still do it today. There was a brother who died not too long ago, and we went up to Whiteville, and the undertaker, not the undertaker, the coroner was holding on to the body. They refused to release the body, and they held him for a long period of time. So the brother said, well, at least we can have, you know, Janazah prayer for him. That's what the brothers did. The imam up there, brother Imam Hassan, he had the prayer for the brother, and we stood in prayer for the brother in the absence of the body, and his family and friends. Oh man, a big crowd of family, friends, a bunch of Catholics that came, you know, so they were learning something that day about the Islam, and they was getting an appreciation for the Muslims that day, you know. Anyway, there was extenuating circumstances that made them pray over that body in the absence of the body. They made that prayer, Janazah prayer. But ordinarily, we hear about somebody dying in California, and it was our relative. We're gonna tell the imam that, can we just line up for the prayer and say Janazah prayer for the brother who died in California? No. Why? There are plenty of Muslims in California, and if he was connected with the Muslims, he had a Janazah prayer. You know, if she was connected with the Muslim, she had a Janazah prayer. There's no need for you to make multiple prayers. There's no proof in the Sunnah of Rasulullah for us doing it. Any more questions? Okay. We take the brother or the sister. Wow, can't even get up. And we carry the body. And here's the grave. Let's make believe we were at the grave. This is the grave. The table. Let's say the table is the grave, right? What we do is we bring the body from the foot side of the grave. We have brothers go down in the grave to receive the body, and head first from the foot side of the grave. Brothers are passing it down, passing him down, and put him in the grave. When they put him in the grave, they're going to lay him on his right side, right? On his right side, all right? As much as they can. You don't have to hold it there. But the idea, he's on his right side, the Qibla side of the wall. He's facing the Qibla side of the wall, all right? Now, here's something else that's important. The brothers who go down in the grave to receive the body should not have had relations with their wife the night before. I said, well, what are you talking about, man? Where'd that come from? Come from the Sunnah of Rasulullah. If you had relations with your wife the night before, you shouldn't be one of the people going down in the grave. When, I believe it was Ruqayyah, one of the daughters of the Rasulullah who was married to Uthman. Because Uthman was married to two of the daughters of the Prophet, not at the same time, but when one died, the Rasulullah allowed him to marry the other one. So he was known as the possessor of two lights. That's Uthman. Uthman. Very special to the Rasulullah. Anyway, when this daughter died, Rasulullah was there, Uthman was there, and other relatives and friends and family and whatnot were there. And Rasulullah, he asked, who was it that wasn't with their wife last night? We want him to go down into the grave to receive her body. Notice, he's asking. He didn't go down in the grave himself. Why? He had how many wives? And he probably was with one of them last night, so he didn't go down. And what about Uthman? Uthman didn't go down either, because maybe he was with his wife last night before she died. You know, they don't do like we do, leave the body sitting in the freezer someplace for a week before they bury him, like they did that Kafir woman. Who was that? The queen of my goodness, how long did she stay above the ground, man, before they put that witch in the ground? You know, the sun never sets on the British Empire. You know, my goodness, you know why they say the sun never sets on the British Empire? Because everywhere you looked, they were in control of this population, that population, and that population, and that population. So there was nowhere where the sun set that they wasn't. You know? They were some wicked people. But anyway, they kept this wicked lady who represented this kingdom above ground for how many? 2 weeks? My goodness, before they finally took her and stuck her in the ground. And how often do we see people, they let them lay in the rotunda in Washington because there's some important, they were elected to some office, and let them stay and lay in the rotunda so that people can come by and view the body. Oh man. You know, the other stuff that they do with the 21-gun salute and all that stuff, where they lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier and stuff like that. We don't participate in none of that crap. Somebody died, they're gonna lower the flag to half-mast. It's horrible when you see some of these masjids doing the same daggone thing. Got flags in front of their masjid. Okay, that's one thing. But you're gonna lower it? You're gonna follow the Christians and the Jews like a lizard running through the hole? We have to be mindful of these things. Oh, brother, we're just going along to get along. No. Making a seat for yourself in the hellfire, which is a horrible place. Anyway, now this brother is laid in the grave, or the sister is laid in the grave, and they're facing the Qibla. Now, ordinarily, the graves that are made, when Rasulullah was buried, he was buried in a lathe. Say, for example, you look at this table, and just imagine this the grave. We dig a hole in here, making it wide like that, right? And then we take the body and put it inside this lathe. Put it inside this lathe and put bricks behind it, and close it up. That's a lathe. That's the best grave. We was able to do that one time up in the cemetery where we are, but we couldn't get it done after that because the sand is too loose and it would fall apart, you know, but we did it as best we could. And then you find that we lay the body in the grave according to their knowledge of the Quran. Also, say if there was more than one person to be buried, whoever knew the most Quran would go first, closer to the Qibla. This is what Rasulullah did at the Battle of Uhud when he buried the Sahabas. Those who knew the Quran most were closest to you know, the direction. You know, the Qibla, they were closest to the Qibla. That's how they were buried. So if they were buried 1, 2, or 3, whoever knew the Quran more. And the brothers knew then because brothers were visiting the masjids every day. They were in the masjids every day. You know, they knew each other. They knew who knew what and who didn't know. You know, this was important. But anyway, let's jump back for a minute and talk about the prayer, the Janazah prayer that we're going to have for the brother. We know we're going to line up. We know we need at least 3 rows. We know the best place to have it is outside. Why? Because when we look at the Rasulullah Islam, this is what he did. He had it outside. And we look through the history, we see some of the knowledgeable people in history, like, remember the brother who they challenged him to say that the Quran was not the word of Allah? Remember that brother? What was his name? They challenged him, they beat him, they tortured him, they put him in prison because he wouldn't say that the Quran was not the word of Allah. He said, no, the Quran is the word of Allah. And they had this new group that came up, and they tortured this brother, Imam Ahmed. Imam Ahmed, they put him in jail, and they tortured him for a long period of time. They had holes in his body so big you could stick your hand in it. That's how bad they tortured him. Why? Because he wouldn't agree with them to say that Allah's book was created. He said, no, it's not created. We have brothers today talking about we don't have the Quran. The Quran is created. Astaghfirullah. Misguidance upon misguidance. But anyway, before he died, before Imam Ahmed died, he was released from prison, and the leadership was in agreement with him because the leader that put him in prison had died. The new leader came, and that leader was in agreement with him. And the people started following what Imam Ahmed was about. You know, this is a good thing that he did. So when he died, everybody showed up for his janazah. 2 million people or more showed up at his janazah. Now, what masjid could hold 2 million or more people? They had it outside. When Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, when he died in Damascus, in Syria, when he died, look at how many people was at his janazah. Over 60,000 people. And don't forget, when you look at Damascus in that day, over 60,000 people, that means most of the people of that area came to his janazah. What masjid could hold that many people? No, they had it outside. They had it outside. That's where we should have ours, outside. That's important. That's very, very important that we pay attention to that and have our janazahs outside, not in the masjid. When we stand up for the prayer, we want to get at least 3 rows because that's an intervention for the individual. You got an opportunity now to intervene for that individual. And when you make the prayer, make a sincere prayer for the person. Know their name. Say their name in your prayer. Be sincere and ask Allah to forgive them. You know, there's many, many different du'as that you can say. It's written in the books. All you got to do is get one. And ask Allah, oh Allah, you have no reason to punish this person. You have no reason. You know, they said, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. Give them, you know, the mercy. You know, allow them, you understand, to get Jannah. Allow them to have no trials or tribulations in their grave. Make these du'as sincerely, like you would want somebody to make for you. Like you would want somebody to make for you. You know, make that for them. But you're standing up in the prayer, and you do, how many takbirs? How many takbirs do we do for the Janazah prayer? 4? You say no? 5? 4? Huh? 5. Okay, we got different numbers. Let me tell you like this. It could be anywhere between 4 and 9. So if you found somebody that was doing more than 4, don't say they're wrong. Because we have proof with authentic sunnah, hadith of Rasulullah that it can be as many as 9. You know, so you don't want to accuse somebody of innovating and being wrong. Ali, radiallahu anhu, you know, he was a very intelligent person. He was one of the smartest people, and he was considered to be the judge of the ummah. He was very intelligent. Rasulullah Islam, when he wanted something done, he would call Ali, tell Ali. He wanted the flag holder, he would call Ali. He wanted this, call Ali. You You know, he made special du'as for Ali. You know, he gave Ali his daughter Fatima. You know, and then he loved his daughter Fatima. He wouldn't allow Ali to marry anybody else. You understand? From the house of Kufa to be one of his co-wives, like he was interested in a particular young lady that, but she was from the house of Kufa, and Rasulullah made it clear, you know, hey, this ain't gonna work. So Ali didn't do it. He didn't do it. That was important. He didn't do it. But Ali, what he would do, if a person was one of the people that fought in the Battle of Badr, and they died, in their janazah, he would do 6 takbirs. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah, 6 times, not just 4. 6. But if it was one of the Sahabas, one of the regular Sahabas, didn't fight in the Battle of Badr, he would do 5 takbirs for them. 5. If it was just a regular, you know, everyday Muslim, you know, it wasn't a Sahabi, he would do 4. This was Ali. And you find proof in the hadith of the Rasulullah that points this out. So I'm raising it now. But it can be as many as 9. What do you say? You have to go back and you have to read up and find out for yourself, because I ain't got time to tell you now. But I can tell you this, you're going to be saying nothing but what is good. You know, you're making that janazah prayer. Now, whether you're going to raise your hand after the first takbir or not, that's up to you. Whether you're going to slam out to the right and that's the end of the prayer, or you're going to slam out to the left as well, like you do in your regular prayer. That's up to you. We don't get into that. One of the things that I do when I do the janazah workshop, I tell the people, I don't have all the answers, but I have some of them, because I look and see what the people of knowledge have said. What the people of knowledge have said, the most authentic works from the people of knowledge, what they have said about the matter. And that's what I follow. If somebody calls me to do a washing and shrouding for somebody, that's what I'm going to do. Just like you saw it today, that's what I'm going to do. Am I going to tell you you're wrong if you do it a different way? No, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not going to tell you that. But don't call me and tell me to follow your way. No, I follow this way. And that's important. You have a question? Okay. Any other questions? All right. One other thing. Well, maybe not one other thing, but recently, wasn't that long ago, we had situations where brothers come with food, and they want to bring food for the people in the cemetery. This is not the place for that. This is not the place for that. And you find it in the Rasulullah Islam that makes it clear that this is not the place for that. You don't do that. You know, I remember going up to some of the other cemeteries that they had janazah prayers at. Brothers were handing out bottles of water and stuff. You know, and you kind of want to frown upon that stuff, because this is not the place for it. Let them get it after they get out of the cemetery. You know, after. You know, but not here. This is not the place for it. We need to be mindful, even though things might come up to our mind and it sounds like it's a good idea, and it doesn't seem like it's a bid'ah, it doesn't seem like it's something haram, you know, then maybe we can do it. It's not going to lead us to hell, maybe we can do it. This is the last thing I'm going to tell you right then, and then I'm going. You had Ibn Masud. Ibn Masud was one of the scholarly people. And you know what? He even looked like you and me. Ibn Masud, one of the knowledgeable people, one of the scholars during the time of the Rasulullah alayhi salam. Well, some young men used to wait for him to come out for Fajr. And they used to sit on the step outside his house waiting for him. And this brother came along. He said, Ibn Masud come out yet? He said, no, we're still waiting for him. Anyway, when Ibn Masud came out, the brother told him, he said, I was in the masjid and I saw something, you know, and I heard, and everything I heard was good. I didn't see anything bad. Only thing I heard was good. And he said, well, what is it that you saw? And what is it that you heard? He said, well, if you should live long enough, you come and go, and you're going to see the same thing. So Ibn Masud went with them, like he always did with those brothers. He went to the masjid. When he got to the masjid, he found people there. And the people were in circles, Talim circles. And they were sitting down and there was a man, you know, telling them to say, Subhanallah, Subhanallah, so many times. They would all say, Subhanallah, Subhanallah, and he would drop stones for each time. And in another circle, somebody would say Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, so many times, and they would drop stones, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. In another circle, they would say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, and they would do that, and they would drop stones. And Ibn Masud told them, Astaghfirullah, Deen, in so many words. I'm shortening the hadith, it's a long hadith. He told them, Astaghfirullah. Now, what they were saying was good. There was nothing wrong with what they were saying. But it was an innovation. It was a bid'ah. It was an innovation in the religion. He said, look, the bowl that the Rasulullah ﷺ used to eat out of is not even broken. It's sitting right over there. The garments that he used to wear is hanging right there, still hanging there. They haven't even, you know, man. And you doing this? And the companions of Muhammad are still amongst you, one of which I am. You didn't consult the companions on this? You didn't ask anybody? You just started doing this stuff? He told them, he said, don't worry about counting your good deeds, you better count your bad deeds. He let them know that that was an innovation, that was a bad thing that they were doing. And I say that to say that we have to be mindful of what it is that we do. And we just can't think that we can do it and get away with it because it's all right. Well, brother, it's not going to lead us to hell. You know, I told a brother one day, we were sitting down and we were eating. It was an iftar. And the brother was eating and drinking with his left hand. And I was saying to him, whispered it to him at first, I said, brother, no, you shouldn't eat with your left hand. You shouldn't drink with your left hand. Yo, brother, you know. I said, brother, the Sunnah Rasulullah. He said, man, we got a better hygiene system than they had back then. He said we had a better hygiene system than they had back then. Plus we eat with utensils and stuff. I looked at this brother, and I just left him, because this brother used to be an imam, and they called him an imam. He was an imam of one of these places of worship that they called, but astaghfirullah. And then another brother, he's supposed to be imam. I went to him and told him about the situation. And he said, yeah, brother, but the left hand, it has to be more to it than that. It has to be a deeper meaning than that, brother. What if you only have a left hand? This is what he said. Allah Shaheed, this is what he said. What if you only have a left hand? Well, brother, if I was going to answer him, and I didn't answer him with that, because I was amazed that he would even say this to me. I was in a state of shock. But if I was to answer him now, I tell him, if you only had a left hand, then you eat with that left hand. Common sense will tell you that. If you have no arms, I've seen a woman that had no arms, a woman or a man, whoever it was, all they had was their feet, and they were eating with their feet. Had the utensil held between their toes, and they was eating with their feet.
Everything.
Yeah, but the thing that I did tell the brother is, brother, when it comes to things like this, we have to deal with what's apparent. What's apparent. Before we go off the deep end and think about what deep wisdom is behind that. No, deal with what's apparent. And what's apparent is, Rasulullah ﷺ said that the shaitan eats and drinks with his left hand. Let us not do it. All right, brothers and sisters, I'm going to stop there. If there are any questions? I'm sorry I kept you so long. Yes?
One thing I'd like to ask you, and also just like that thing I looked at before coming in that book, the difference between other prayers and Janazah prayer. There is no adhan for it. There is no ikama.
Right.
And the steps, very simplified steps mentioned in the Sunnah, is that after lining up behind the Imam with the first takbir, before that we of course have the intention of the prayer, and then with the first takbir we should follow the Imam with takbir, and then say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. then Surah Fatiha, and then the second takbir, and then Durud Ibrahim, then the third takbir, and the prayer, after that prayer for the
For the deceased.
deceased, and then pray for the whole ummah, and end with the fourth takbir,
Yes.
and then salam.
Yes. It's important that you know the procedures for the prayer, but I suggest that you read that on your own. That's something that you can get on your own and you can benefit from. Notice that the prayer is not like the other prayers where we have the preamble of the prayer where we say, there's certain things that we don't say except in our regular prayers, you know, but we don't say them in the Janazah prayer. Okay? The Janazah prayer, we have our Fatiha, and maybe if we want a short surah, you understand, in the first takbir, you know, after the first takbir. And then we're doing, after that, we're doing the other parts of the Janazah prayer, and you should pay attention to it. You should read it for yourself, and you can get that. I'm not going to go into that now. Yes, brother.
Where people that do like have books, where can they find it at? Can they find it? Can they Google it and download it, like copy it out?
Yes, they can. They can. But as I pointed out, The Inevitable Journey. This is by Muhammad Jabali. And like I said, he took what Imam Muhammad Nasruddin al-Albani, the Mujaddid as they called him, of our day. He wrote the book. He did the study on it. He put it all in one place. Muhammad Jabali took it and put it here for us in English, and 99.9% of it is that. You can find this on Amazon, and you can find it in other bookstores, you know, of your choice. You can find this book though. You won't have a problem. Yes, sister.
The food is ready.
Okay. Sister said the food is ready.
I have-
Also, you can find in the PDF format under the website. I think I checked kalamullah.com. It's PDF, that book.
Yaqub,
Yes.
just for a few minutes, about 2 minutes.
What?
I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm just saying we do
Don't
have.
take a moment. I know what you're going to do. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Real quick.
Please use the mic, brother.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. With Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. What I want to just briefly say to the gathering here is that one day we was out at the cemetery and we were waiting on the body to arrive. And when the body or the hearse came up and removed the body, a couple of us, Shamsiddeen, myself, I think Imam Bobby Hamid, and maybe Brother Mustafa, we were standing there and we said, you know, we can do that ourselves. By doing that ourselves, what was meant was we can secure the body and we can deliver the body directly to the cemetery without going through a third party. So from that idea, we saw a need, and Allah bless us to fulfill the need. And we have a transport service that's here locally. We've been using Brother Rogers, I think out of South Carolina. But the van is outside, we have the card. If any of us, it's already been said, all of us gonna have a taste of death. That's Quran, that's what Allah is saying. So when our family transition, you can call this number, you can call me, this person, and we can secure the body. We went through all the proper procedures. We did not do any Niger rigging. Now for those who don't understand that language, I'm saying Niger rigging. So you can translate it on your own. So we didn't do any of that. We went through all the proper procedures, all the documentation, certifications, and proper insurance in order to do this business. And we use local people, one of them is here, to make the signs. We use a local person in order to purchase the van. And we just secured the one-man stretcher in order to go into the home, place the body on the stretcher, and take the body directly to the van and transport the decedent straight to the cemetery, as Brother Yaqub said, the wash house. So I just wanted to make us aware of that. I saw the card on the board. I have one with me. I have more with me, but if anyone want to get one, I'm going to have to go because my Zao, she's going out of town, and I want to see her off before she goes. And so if you want to get a card, just let me know, because I'm going to have to make a run. Thank you very much for your time. Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, we gave them out already.
I sent it.
We told them. And let's be mindful. One of the things that we're concerned about also is language. And when we talk about people transitioning, we're talking about death. You know, a lot of times we're in denial of death. And some of the things that we see the Kafirs do, it's all to deny death. You go into their cemeteries, and it's not the way it used to be. It's a different way now. They got the big green cloth, and they put it on the ground to hide the dirt. It's going to cover the body, you know, and then they put chairs around, and they're sitting around. This is something that we don't do. We shouldn't copy them, you know, but this is what they do. And instead of lowering the body into the ground, they don't even do that anymore while you're there. They wait until you go, and then they do it. This is just another way of denying, being denial of death. But death is going to come to everybody, all of us, you know, and there's nothing that we should fear. You know, the Muslim, even if the Muslim is killed, by an object, you know, there's indication from the hadith of Rasulullah Islam that whatever is used as an instrument to take our life, it would feel like no more than a prick of a needle or something, you know? So we shouldn't fear it. We shouldn't fear it. This is something that we should think about. But death is going to come to all of us. We should be prepared for it. Don't try to change the language. It's one of the reasons that the Muslim, when we have our janazahs, we're holding the body, and it's a carrier that we have, not a coffin, and the body is on it, and the people can see the way it's really supposed to be done. We don't have funeral cars. You know, that's an innovation. We don't have funeral cars that we follow. You understand? We're going to these janazahs. We don't do that. You know, we don't do that. This is what the Christians and the Jews and the others do, but we don't do that. We're not in denial of death. The death of the body is right there. I remember walking down the street in Egypt. We were carrying the body to the cemetery, walking to the cemetery, carrying the body. That's what we did, you know, and that's what we should do. We should be mindful of that. All of this stuff about having the sheriff lead the way, take us through the lights and all that. No, give people GPS and tell them where the cemetery is, and you come to the cemetery on your own. You don't have to follow no caravan like you're a Christian or a Jew or somebody else. We don't do that. So let's not fall into their way. Let's get away from their way as much as possible. This is what we need to do. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. If I said anything that was good, know that it came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if there's anything that I said that was wrong, then that's from the shaitan to me.
What is this? This is a tab.
May Allah protect us from that, help us, guide us, and strengthen us. Yeah, I'm just
No, I don't know this technology, and I'm just trying to see how we